Wars, expeditions, battles. That's how many people remember the time of Prophet Muhammad, but did the Quran call for this, or was something else happening? When you hear people talk about early Islamic history, what do they usually focus on? They talk about battles, they repeat military words, and they often ignore everything else around it. This is important because this is how Islam is shown to you today. A few moments from history are taken and used to define an entire religion, while the main message of Islam is ignored. These moments are repeated again and again to shape your opinion, create fear, and sometimes even influence how you think politically. How Islam is shown matters. Because when context is removed, the picture becomes distorted. But what if war was not the message, but the consequence? To judge these battles without this context is to judge the wrong story. History is never just a list of events, it's a sequence of causes, pressures, and decisions made in real time. In this video, we'll explore what was actually happening during the Prophet Muhammad's lifetime and how the Quran addressed conflict, responsibility, and restraint. By the end, you'll understand whether war was the message or whether it was a response to circumstances far more complex than we're usually told. When you hear about war during the time of Muhammad, the idea often sounds simple, that Islam spread by violence and that the Quran encouraged it. But this idea still affects how you see Islam today. It creates fear, supports extreme views, and removes the real historical context. To really understand what was happening, we have to look at the words themselves. And this is where it gets mind-blowing. Here's the wow moment. In Islamic history, the word people often translate as battle is ghazwa. But ghazwa does not automatically mean fighting. It simply means a military expedition where Prophet Muhammad was present. And here's the part that really makes you stop and think. Many ghazwat ended with no fighting at all. No battle, no bloodshed, just movement, protection, and prevention. Once you see this, the story completely changes. And no, this is not my opinion. This comes from real historians who wrote early Islamic history, like Ibn Ishaq, Ibn Hisham, and Ibn Sa'd. Scholars people still study today. Now here's the part that makes you go, wait, what? Guess how many ghazwat there actually were? Not hundreds, not even close. Only 27. That's it. And it gets even more surprising. Out of those 27, actual fighting happened in only about 9. So most ghazwat had no fighting at all. They were about moving troops, showing presence, protecting trade routes, stopping attacks before they happened, or responding to threats. So no, this was not war for the love of war. And once you hear the numbers, the story sounds very different. But why does this matter today? Because when everything is reduced to the word war, we lose the meaning behind it. We ignore why things happened, what was happening at the time, and the limits that were set. We also forget that this was a world where people survived through defense, alliances, and showing strength to avoid attacks. By now, one thing should be clear. The presence of a military expedition does not automatically mean violence. And this is where the conversation usually starts to feel uncomfortable. What if the Quran didn't normalize killing, but actually worked to limit it? To answer this, we need to look at the text itself, not assumptions about it. In the Quran, the Arabic root often translated as kill, qatala, appears about 170 times in all its forms. That number may sound large at first, but the meaning changes when we look at how those 170 mentions are used. Out of these 170 times, about 40 to 45%, which is roughly 68 to 76 verses, are clearly against killing. These verses say that taking a life is wrong and that every human life is sacred. For example, the Quran says in chapter 6, verse 151, "Do not kill the soul which Allah has made sacred." Another 30 to 35%, about 51 to 60 verses, appear in stories, not commands. One clear example is the story of Abel and Cain, where one brother kills the other. The Quran presents this act as a lesson and a warning, not an order. This story appears in chapter 5, verses 27 to 31, which says, "And recite to them the story of the two sons of Adam in truth. One of them killed the other, and he became among the losers. And this story is not unique to the Quran. It is also found in the Torah and the Bible. That leaves only 20 to 25%, around 34 to 43 verses that relate to war. And even these verses are very limited. They allow fighting only in self-defense, warn people not to go too far, and command them to stop if peace is possible. One example is chapter 4, verse 93, which says, "Whoever kills a believer on purpose, his punishment is hell." So when we look carefully at the numbers, the picture becomes clear. The Quran talks about killing mostly to stop it, warn against it, and strictly limit it, not to encourage it. This is where context becomes everything. The Quran does not present violence as an ideal. It treats it as a last resort, surrounded by rules, restraint, mercy, and the constant option of peace when aggression stops. And this raises a serious question. If killing were the goal, why so many limits? Why excuse the weak, the sick, and the poor from fighting? Why focus on intention more than results? What we begin to see is not the glorification of war, but an attempt to control human conflict in a violent world, to reduce chaos, not create it. The Quran does not remove human responsibility, it confronts it. When we step back, the picture becomes clearer. Before Islam, wars in the name of God were very common. History records hundreds of wars, around 500 to 600 wars spread over many centuries. War was normal, and religion was often used to justify it. Now look at the numbers in Islam. During the lifetime of Prophet Muhammad, which lasted about 23 years, there were only 27 ghazwat. That is it, 27. Not hundreds where real fighting happened in only about 9 of those 27. And they all happened in a short, specific period, in a world where tribal war already existed. This shows something very important. Islam did not come to start wars. It came to control them, limit them, and reduce them. The Quran never made killing holy. It made life holy and treated war as something temporary, restricted, and unwanted. Numbers matter, and these numbers tell a very different story. The past isn't just history, it's a mirror. It's easy to remember history by its loud moments. Wars, expeditions, battles. These moments stand out, so they are easy to point at and hard to forget. But when we slow down and look closely, we see a different story. Not a religion built on violence, but a message trying to control violence. Not blind expansion, but survival, self-defense, and moral responsibility in a harsh world. The Quran does not ask people to stop being human. It asks them to use power carefully, to check their intentions, and to think about consequences. That is why verses about conflict are often misunderstood, because they require thinking, not slogans. So maybe the real question is not whether war existed in the Prophet's time. The real question is why it happened, how it was limited, and when it had to stop. Because when context is ignored, Scripture can be used as a weapon. But when context is understood, Scripture becomes a warning. And that difference still matters now more than ever.